After my husband faked his death, I faked mine too, taking my enormous dowry with me. He panicked when the news came that my husband, Pei Zishuan, had died in battle. I fainted on the spot, but soon after, I saw him in the next town, picking rouge with his first love, his eyes full of affection. If he wanted to disappear by faking death, I would play along. I took all my dowry, jumped into the river in front of the whole city, and left no body behind. Half a month later, as he was living happily with his first love, he received a letter from his parents in the capital. After reading it, the first love in his arms turned pale and trembled all over. When the news of Pei Zishuan's death reached me, I was sewing winter clothes for him. The needle pricked my finger, a drop of blood welling up and staining the snow-white silk. I felt no pain. My ears buzzed. The soldier delivering the message moved his lips, but I heard nothing after the first few words. My vision went black, and I collapsed straight down. When I woke again, 3 days had passed. The whole house was draped in white, a mourning hall already set up. Pei Zishuan's memorial tablet stood in the center. My husband, the man who had promised to grow old with me, was now a cold wooden plaque. My tears fell like broken beads, unstoppable. My maid Shuang'er cried and begged me to eat. "Madam, please have something, if the general is watching from heaven. He wouldn't want you to torture yourself like this." I grabbed her hand, my nails almost digging into her skin. "He promised me. He said when he won the war, he would retire and accompany me to see all the flowers in the south. He broke his word." I cried so hard I fainted again. In half a month, I lost 20 jin, wasting away to skin and bones. Everyone said Madame Pei was deeply devoted. Several uncles from Pei's side branch praised me non-stop, calling me a model of chastity and loyalty. They praised me while plotting to take over the property Pei Zishuan had left behind. I watched coldly, saying nothing. My heart had died with Pei Zishuan. Shuang'er was afraid I would fall ill from grief and begged me to go out. "Madam, the White Horse Temple in the next town is said to be very spiritual. Let's go draw a peace fortune for the general, to bless him in his next life." I thought for a moment and nodded. It was time to go out. Maybe a change of scenery would ease the pain. We took a carriage to the next town. It was small but lively. I had no mood to wander. I only wanted to reach the temple quickly. As we passed a rouge shop, I glanced over by chance. One look, and my blood turned to ice. At the shop door stood a tall man, sideways to me. He held a box of rouge, speaking softly and gently to the woman beside him. The woman wore a light green dress, smiling shyly, her eyes bright with affection. In the sun, the line of the man's jaw was so familiar. That doting look, I had been the one to receive it countless times. It was Pei Zishuan, my husband, the Pei Zishuan who had died in battle. He wasn't dead, he was alive and well. While I was mourning him, he was picking rouge for another woman. I knew that woman too, Liu Rumei, his first love from his youth. Back then, the Pei family had looked down on her low birth and forced them apart. Later, I married Pei Zishuan. I thought 3 years of living together, caring for him day and night, would be enough to warm his heart. It turned out everything was just my wishful thinking. The pain in my chest was worse than when I heard he was dead. So this is what it means. There is no sorrow greater than a dead heart. No more tears would come. Shuang'er saw him too, her face turning pale with fright. She reached out to support me. "Madam," I lifted my hand to stop her. I watched the perfect couple, as Pei Zishuan carefully placed the rouge box into Liu Rumei's palm. Liu Rumei stood on tiptoe and kissed his lips lightly. Pei Zishuan smiled, bright, satisfied, happy. I stood in the crowd, looking like a ridiculous fool. He hadn't died in battle. He had chosen to die so he could run away with the woman he loved. He had abandoned his duty, his honor, and me, his legal wife. Fine, perfect. If you wanted to die, I would help you. I turned to Shuang'er calmly, my voice cold as ice. Let's go back home. The morning music still played in the hall. I stared at the plaque inscribed Pays Ishuan and found it bitterly ironic. I walked over and picked it up, my fingers brushing the deep-carved characters. The steward from the side branch saw my strange expression and approached cautiously. "Madam, what are you?" I turned to him and smiled faintly. "Nothing. I just think my husband must be too lonely on the road to the afterlife." The steward didn't understand and tried to persuade me further. I waved him away. I went back to my room and closed the door. Schwanger brought ginseng soup, her eyes full of worry. "Madam, don't scare me." I took the soup and drank it all in one gulp. "I'm fine." I was more than fine, I was completely clear-headed. I opened all the chests holding my dowry, gold and silver jewelry, land deeds, house deeds, antiques, paintings, and the secret banknotes my mother had left for me. This was my foundation, the security for the rest of my life. Pays Ishuan, you must have forgotten. Most of the general's mansion expenses were covered by my dowry. Now you want to slip away and fly far with your first love. Dream on. I spread out paper and began writing letters. One to my father, the grand tutor in the capital, whose students filled the court. In it, I said nothing about Pays Ishuan faking his death. I only wrote that my husband had died in battle, that I was overcome with grief and could not go on living. I had decided to follow him in death to fulfill our marital vow. I begged him, out of love for my devotion, not to report me to the authorities or search for my body. Let my husband and I be a peaceful couple underground. The second letter was to Pays Ishuan's parents in the capital, my in-laws. The content was mostly the same, only at the end did I casually add, "I heard my husband had a confidant in this life, named Liu Rumei. I imagine his journey to the afterlife is long. If a lovely woman accompanies him, he will not be lonely, as his unworthy wife. I would be willing to be sisters with Lady Liu underground and serve him together." I wrote earnestly, every word bleeding with sorrow. The image of a foolish woman blinded by love, willing to even accept her husband's old lover, leaped off the page. After writing, I sealed the letters with wax. I called a completely trusted servant and ordered him to leave at once, delivering the 2 letters to the capital as fast as possible. Once that was done, I began packing my dowry. I had Schwanger help me bundle all the gold, silver, and valuables. The heavy furniture and antiques I sold at a discount overnight, trading them for thick, heavy banknotes. Schwanger cried and asked me, "Madam, what on earth are you going to do?" I stroked her head, my voice calm. "Schwanger, starting tomorrow, you are no longer my maid. I will give you money, go back to your hometown, buy a small yard, marry an honest man, and live a peaceful life. Forget about me." Schwanger knelt on the ground, clinging tightly to my legs. "Madam, wherever you go, I go. Don't send me away." I sighed. Some things she didn't need to know. I knocked her unconscious, stuffed a bag of gold and silver and the ashes of her indenture contract into her arms, and sent her to a safe place outside the city. Dawn came. I changed into snow-white mourning clothes. I looked in the mirror at the woman with a pale face but astonishingly bright eyes. "Shen Yue, from today on, you live for yourself." Holding an empty jewelry box, I walked out of the general's mansion. I did not take a carriage. I walked step by step down the long street. The townspeople saw me and stopped, pointing and whispering, "Look, it's General Pei's wife. So pitiful. They say she hasn't eaten properly in half a month." General Pei was so lucky to marry such a loyal wife. I listened to their comments with a blank face. This was exactly what I wanted. I wanted everyone in the city to know that I, Shen Yue, General Pei's wife, had died for my husband. I wanted this to become an unshakable fact, a fact no one could overturn. I reached the Qin River outside the city. The current was rapid, the waves high and fierce. This was a famous dangerous shoal. They said anyone who fell in would never be found. A huge crowd had gathered behind me. They were all watching me, the loyal and chaste wife, perform my act. I stood on the huge rock by the river, the wind lifting my white sleeves. I raised the jewelry box high toward the crowd. Fellow villagers, my voice was not loud, but it carried clearly across the riverbank. My husband, Pei Zishuan, gave his life for his country. His death was worthy. As his wife, if I cannot live with him, I will die with him. A gasp rose from the crowd. People began begging me not to do it. Madam Pei, please don't do this. Yes, you're still young. You have your whole life ahead of you. I smiled sadly, a single tear sliding from the corner of my eye. This tear was for the naive girl I used to be. Without my husband, this long life is nothing but torment. My mind is made up. Please do not try to stop me. I opened the jewelry box. It was empty. I held it high and let go. The empty box was swept away by the wind into the raging river and vanished in an instant. I have sold all my dowry and donated it to the city's charities to accumulate merit for my husband. The crowd erupted. Heaven, Madam Pei has a heart of a bodhisattva, not only dying for her husband, but giving away all her wealth. A woman like this is rare in the world. I listened to their praise and sneered inwardly. This was the reputation I wanted, a perfect victim, loyal, kind, willing to die for love. This reputation would be my first great gift to Pei Zishuan and Liu Rumei. I took a deep breath and glanced one last time at the place I had called home for 3 years. Goodbye. I spread my arms and leaned backward. Amid the heart-wrenching screams from the shore, I plunged into the icy river. The water swallowed me at once. A hidden water pouch I had prepared burst the moment I submerged. Bright red liquid mixed with waterweed dye spread across the surface. Looking just like blood, from a distance, the scene was utterly tragic. Chaos erupted on the bank. Some jumped in to save me, only to be swept away by the violent current. Others ran to report to the authorities. The government sent hundreds of men to drag the river downstream for 3 days and nights. They found nothing. In the end, they could only write in the records, Shen Yuwei, wife of General Pei, committed suicide by jumping into the river to follow her husband in death. No body was found. Half a month later, in an elegant courtyard south of the Yangtze, the fallen in battle Pei Zishuan was holding Liu Rumei, admiring flowers in the yard. Zishuan, we'll stay here from now on, never apart again. Liu Rumei leaned against his chest, her face full of happiness. Pei Zishuan stroked her hair, his eyes full of tenderness. Never again. He had planned this day for a long time. The fake death scheme had been flawless. As for that woman Shen Yuwei, she was probably still crying for him in the mansion. He felt no guilt. He had never loved her. Marrying her had only been his family's arrangement. Now he was free. He and his Maya could finally be together. A servant hurried in, holding a letter. Young master. A letter from the capital. Pei Zishuan took it and saw the familiar family seal. He frowned. How had his parents found him here? He tore it open and skimmed through it quickly. The letter was from his mother. The words made his smile freeze little by little. In the end, his face turned paler than paper. Liu Rumei in his arms noticed his strangeness and asked softly, Zishuan, what's wrong? What does the letter say? Pei Zishuan did not answer. He only stared at the page, his hands shaking violently. Liu Rumei leaned over curiously and read the words too. My daughter-in-law Shen Yuwei, upon hearing the news of your death, was overcome with grief. Half a month ago, she threw herself into the Qin River to follow you in death. The entire city witnessed it. Her name as a loyal and chaste wife has spread to the capital. His Majesty was moved and personally wrote the 4 characters loyal and chaste woman. Liu Rumei's eyes widened sharply, all color draining from her face. The letter was not finished. Before Yuwei died, she sent me a letter. She mentioned you had a confidant named Liu Rumei. She was kind-hearted and hoped you would have lovely company on your journey to the afterlife. Your father and I have discussed this. Since our Pei family failed Yue, we cannot wrong Lady Liu either. I have reported to the clan, on the anniversary of your fake death, we will enter Lady Liu's name into the family registry and hold a ghost marriage for her. She shall serve as your concubine in the underworld, attending to the main wife Yue properly. Liu Rumei trembled all over. As if struck by lightning, the letter was like a poisoned dagger, piercing straight into Pei Zishuan and Liu Rumei's hearts. All the blood left Liu Rumei's face. Ghost marriage, as a concubine. Her voice was shrill, as if someone had squeezed her throat. Zishuan, what does this mean? Pei Zishuan did not answer, his hands shook. The letter written by his own mother felt heavier than 1,000 jin right now. The word concubine burned into his eyes like a red-hot needle. He had gone through so much trouble, even risking charges of treason and deceiving the emperor, to escape. What for? To spend his life with Maya and give her a proper, legitimate title. But now, Shen Yue was dead, in a tragic, decisive way. She had nailed him to the pillar of shame, and trapped his beloved Maya forever in the position of concubine, a shameful concubine who would serve the main wife in the underworld. Zishuan, say something. Liu Rumei shook his arm like a madwoman. This isn't true, right? Your mother is joking. Crack. Pei Zishuan swept the teacup off the table. Shards scattered everywhere. How dare she? He roared, his eyes bloodshot. How dare she die like that? He was furious, in disbelief. In his mind, Shen Yue was gentle, weak, even a little foolish. She had loved him to the bone. Even if she found out he had faked his death, she should have cried and covered for him. How could she have committed suicide? And made it so public that even the emperor was moved. That one jump had ruined all his plans. It turned him from a general tired of war pursuing true love into a complete coward and sinner. Are you sad that she's dead? Liu Rumei's voice was cold, tearful. Pei Zishuan, do you regret it? Do you think you should be with your loyal chaste wife instead of me, the troublemaker who's going to be your ghost concubine? Nonsense. Pei Zishuan pushed her away in frustration. How could I regret it? I never thought things would turn out like this. Liu Rumei fell to the ground, tears pouring down. What do we do now? I'm a joke to the whole world. Liu Rumei, am going to marry a dead man as a concubine. And in the afterlife, I have to serve Shen Yue. I won't accept it. I won't. Her screams pierced Pei Zishuan's head like a awl. He paced the room irritably. Go back. Impossible. He was officially dead. Returning would mean treason, punishable by execution of the entire clan, not go back. Then Maya would carry the shame of being a ghost concubine for the rest of her life, and his parents would live in pain, having lost their son and failed their daughter-in-law. All of this was Shen Yue's doing. That woman had woven an inescapable net with her life, leaving him trapped, unable to move. It's all your fault. Pei Zishuan spun around and glared fiercely at Liu Rumei. If you hadn't insisted on this plan, things wouldn't have ended up like this. Liu Rumei stared at him in disbelief. You blame me. Who was the one who said this was the only way we could be together forever? Who said he was sick of that wooden beauty Shen Yue? And now you put it all on me. Pei Zishuan, are you even a man? The quarrel tore apart all their tenderness. Their once sweet vows now sounded only ironic. Pei Zishuan looked at the tear-streaked Liu Rumei and, for the first time, found her no longer beautiful. He closed his eyes wearily. Stop arguing. Let me think. There must be a way. He didn't know. Shen Yue, had left him no way out at all. In my own courtyard south of the Yangtze, I listened to my trusted servant's report and calmly embroidered a pair of twin lotus flowers. The needle fell, the thread red as blood. Pei Zishuan, Liu Rumei, your suffering has only just begun. The great gift I prepared for you, you're going to love it. I gave myself a new name, Su Wei. taking my mother's surname. In Suzhou, I bought a large 3-courtyard mansion right on the busiest street in the city. Behind the house, a river flowed by. Standing by the second-floor window, I could see small bridges, flowing water, and black canopied boats coming and going. The south of the Yangtze was truly beautiful. The place Pei Zishuan had promised to take me to see. Now I was here, alone, with all his wealth, well, my dowry. I counted the gold, silver, jewels, and banknotes I had brought. The sum was enormous, more than enough for me to live in luxury for the rest of my life. But I didn't want to be the same inner-house woman who only cared about romance and poetry anymore. I wanted to live for myself, live more brilliantly than anyone else. I took over the largest silk shop in the city, splendid pavilion. My mother had been the most famous embroiderer in the south. The Su family's silk business had once spread across the realm. Having grown up around it, I had learned most of it. Taking over the silk shop was not difficult. I dressed in neat men's clothing and called myself Lady Wei. Every day I went to the shop to run the business personally, checking accounts, inspecting fabrics, negotiating prices with merchants from north and south. At first, many looked down on me for being a woman. That was until I pointed out flaws in their accounts in a few words, and could name the origin, craftsmanship, strengths, and weaknesses of any cloth at a glance. Only then did the old shopkeepers and merchants put away their contempt and treat me with respect. The business quickly got on track. I earned a great deal of money, hundreds of times more than my monthly allowance in the general's mansion. This was what it felt like to rely on myself, steady and free. I had settled Schwanger in a small farm outside the city. I visited her once. She had married the farm steward's honest son and was already pregnant. When she saw me, she cried uncontrollably. I gave her a banknote for 10,000 taels. Forget the past, live well. She clutched it and knelt kowtowing to me. I knew she understood. From then on, there was no more mistress and maid Shen Yue and Schwanger, only Su Wei and the peasant woman Schwanger. I began using the money I earned to build my own network of informants. I bought over traveling merchant caravans, and planted my own eyes in the capital and the small town where Pei Zishuan was hiding. I wanted to know their every move. I wanted to watch Pei Zishuan be driven into a corner by me. I wanted to watch that delicate first love wither away, bit by bit, in daily trivialities and constant fear. One day, I was feeding fish by the backyard pond, when my trusted steward hurried over. "Master, news from the capital." I dropped the fish food and wiped my hands. "Speak." "The old masters of the Pei family have held a grand ghost marriage and joint burial for you and General Pei. The ceremony was reportedly even more magnificent than your actual wedding." I smiled. "Is that so? Then I am truly honored." "Another thing." The steward paused and went on. "The Pei family has already sent men to the Liu family. The Lius are just ordinary merchants. They dare not offend the Grand Tutor's residence or the Pei residence. They have accepted the betrothal gifts from the Pei family and agreed for Miss Liu Rumei to marry General Pei posthumously. Miss Liu's memorial tablet will be sent to the Pei Ancestral Hall before long, to be enshrined forever as a concubine." The smile on my lips deepened. "I understand. One more thing." The steward pulled a piece of paper from his chest. This was bought from a servant at Pei Zishuan's hiding place. "Pei Zishuan appears to be out of money." I took the paper and unfolded it. A rough portrait of a man was drawn on it. Though messy, I recognized him at once. Pei Zishuan. Beneath the portrait was a line of small characters. "This man will go to the Hungtong pawn shop in the neighboring city in 3 days to pawn his personal jade pendant." I stared at the portrait for a long time without speaking. Fish scramble for the last bait in the water, just like trapped beasts make their final struggle. "Pei Zishuan, you're finally coming out. I've been waiting for this day for a long time." Pei Zishuan's life was miserable. His money was almost gone. When he faked his death and left, the gold and silver he took were only enough for the two of them for 1 year. He thought a year would be long enough to use his old connections to start over in the south. But he forgot, he was a dead man now, a hero who gave his life for his country. He could not show his face. All his connections and relationships had been buried along with the name Pei Zishuan. Liu Rumei had changed. She was no longer the understanding, gentle and considerate Maya. She had become sensitive, irritable, and neurotic. She would fly into a rage over the smallest things. She would wake up screaming from nightmares in the middle of the night, crying that she did not want to go to the underworld to be Shen Yue's concubine. She would question him over and over. Why are you so useless? You're a great general, how can you not even get silver? I didn't follow you to live this secret, miserable life. Every quarrel cut what little affection they had left to pieces. Pei Zishuan's heart turned from guilt at first to numbness, even disgust. He began to miss the past. He missed the peace of the general's mansion. He missed Shen Yue, who never raised her voice at him, who always looked at him with adoring eyes. Even if that adoration did not have the passionate love he wanted, it was peaceful at least. Not like this courtyard now a gorgeous cage. He and Liu Rumei were two trapped beasts, tearing each other apart day after day, until even his last valuable jade pendant had to be taken to the pawn shop. It had been given to him by his mother, to pass to his future daughter-in-law. He had once thought of giving it to Liu Rumei, but now, he only wanted to trade it for silver, to have a few quiet days. He put on plain, unremarkable clothes, pulled a bamboo hat low over his face. Where are you going? Liu Rumei looked at him suspiciously. Out to run an errand, he answered coldly. Are you going to run away? Are you going to leave me alone? She rushed over and grabbed his arm tightly. Pei Zishuan, don't you dare, if I'm suffering, you're suffering too. Pei Zishuan shook her off in disgust. I'm just going to pawn something to buy you flowers. His voice was full of mockery. Liu Rumei froze. She watched his resolute back leave and slumped to the ground. When had their love become so repulsive? Pei Zishuan moved carefully all the way to Hungtong pawn shop in the neighboring city. It was the largest pawn shop nearby, said to have powerful backers and never ask about the origin of goods. He lowered his bamboo hat and walked in. The pawn shop keeper was a shrewd middle-aged man. Pei Zishuan placed the jade pendant on the counter. The keeper picked it up, glanced at it, and his eyes flickered slightly. Fine warm Hatian jade, exquisite carving, clearly an imperial item. Sir, how much do you want for it? Full pawn, 500 taels, Pei Zishuan said in a low voice. The pendant was worth at least 3,000 taels, but he was desperate for money and could not afford to be picky. The keeper smiled and said nothing. He picked up the pendant and turned into the inner hall. Pei Zishuan waited outside, feeling uneasy. After a while, the keeper came out. Behind him was another man. The man wore dark green silk robes, twirling a jade folding fan in his hand. He was tall and handsome, with the shrewdness and worldliness of a merchant. When Pei Zishuan saw that face, his pupils shrank sharply. The man also saw him. He paused for a moment, then smiled playfully. General Pei, the man spoke slowly, his voice not loud, but like a thunderclap in Pei Zishuan's ears. Long time no see. Pei Zishuan's heart sank to the bottom. He knew this man, Su Wen, the only son of the Su family, the largest imperial merchant in the capital, and also Shen Yue's own cousin. Su Wen, my cousin. My mother was the only daughter of the Su family, and had always been close to my uncle. Su Wen was only 3 years older than me. When we were little, he often came to the Grand Tutor's residence, bringing the freshest trinkets from Suzhou, climbing trees, and stealing bird nests with me. He was the closest man to me besides my father. He was also the only one who knew I was still alive. Besides my parents and Schwanger, when I decided to fake my death by jumping into the river, he was the first person I told. I needed the Su family's power to handle my unspeakable businesses. I needed the Su family's caravans to secretly move my enormous wealth to the south. Su Wen agreed without hesitation. He only asked me one question. Wei Wei, have you made up your mind? I nodded. I have. He wanted me dead, so I'll die for him. He wanted to fly away with his beloved, so I'll let him. But the road to their happiness must be paved with blood and tears. Cousin, help me. Su Wen smiled, the same smile he now wore looking at Pei Zishuan. All right, I'll help you. My servant reported everything that happened in the pawnshop to me in detail. When Pei Zishuan saw my cousin, his face turned green, like a rooster with its neck squeezed. Master Su. Pei Zishuan's voice trembled. He never dreamed he would meet Shen Yue's cousin here. In this way, Su Wen walked forward slowly. He picked up the jade pendant from the counter and tossed it in his hand. General Pei, what a coincidence. I attended your funeral in the capital just a few days ago. How come you're back from the dead so soon? His voice was soft, but every word cut to the heart. Cold sweat broke out on Pei Zishuan's forehead. He stepped back instinctively, trying to run. The pawnshop's servants had blocked the door without him noticing. All strong and menacing, Pei Zishuan's heart sank completely. This was a trap set just for him. Master Su, what do you want? I don't want anything. Su Wen tucked the jade pendant into his chest. This pendant is of excellent quality. Consider it a gift from you to your brother-in-law. He patted Pei Zishuan on the shoulder. The force was light, but full of humiliation. As for you, General Pei, I'll spare your life for now. My poor cousin's body is barely cold. Someone has to do something for her. Su Wen leaned close to his ear and spoke in a voice only the two of them could hear. Don't try to run. The south is the Su family's territory. If I can find you once, I can find you 100 times. From today on, you and that woman of yours had better behave, otherwise. He left the threat hanging. But the unspoken danger was more terrifying than any words. Pei Zishuan walked out of the pawnshop in a daze. He left empty-handed. His last hope was gone. He returned to that gorgeous cage like a walking corpse. Liu Rumei saw him and rushed over at once. Where's the money? How much did you get? Pei Zishuan looked at her eager face and felt a wave of disgust. Gone. What do you mean, gone? The pendant was taken. He lied. He dared not say Su Wen's name. That would mean admitting they were completely exposed. Liu Rumei's scream almost pierced his eardrums. Taken. Pei Zishuan, you're useless. You can't even keep a piece of jade. What are we going to do now? Starve? Pei Zishuan did not argue as she cursed. He only looked up at her with empty eyes. Maya, did we do something wrong? In that moment, he truly regretted it. Regret. Too late. Pei Zishuan's regret was worthless to me. I sat in the private room on the second floor of the splendid pavilion, listening as my servant vividly described their quarrel. It was said that Liu Rumei had smashed everything breakable in the room that day. Like a complete madwoman, and Pei Zishuan just sat there, saying nothing, letting her rage. When she was tired and her voice was hoarse from crying, he spoke his second sentence. Are you tired? Rest if you are. His tone was terrifyingly calm. No love, no hatred, only endless exhaustion and numbness. Liu Rumei was frightened by his appearance. She dared not make a scene anymore. The two sat silently amid the mess, a cold war beginning. They no longer spoke. At meals, they sat at opposite ends. At night, they slept with a wide gap between them. Once loving partners had become the strangest of strangers. What had supported their love was romance and vows. The glory and wealth built on Pei Zishuan's identity as a general. Now all of it was gone. The trivial daily hardships of real life were enough to crush all empty romance. Their money ran out completely. They began selling her jewelry. Liu Rumei never had much to begin with, and it was all gone quickly. She then set her eyes on Pei Zishuan's accessories. His belt, his crown, Even the jade buttons on his boots, anything valuable was traded for rice and flour. The once glorious General Pei and his beloved first love, now reduced to pawning their belongings to survive. How bitterly ironic. I listened to these reports with immense satisfaction. This was exactly what I wanted them to taste, what it meant to fall from the clouds into the mud. How easy it is to love, but how hard to stay together. One day, my spy returned and reported. Liu Rumei had gone out alone, sneaking to a jewelry shop. She had pawned her last golden hairpin. After getting the money, she did not go home at once. Instead, she bought the cheapest box of rouge on the street, and a stick of candied hawthorn. She sat on the street steps, crying while eating the candied hawthorn bite by bite. When she finished, she opened the low-quality rouge, and carefully daubed it on her face using a blurry bronze mirror, as if it were her last shred of dignity. I fell silent for a long time after hearing this. I knew Liu Rumei was at her breaking point. A woman raised in comfort all her life, who had never known suffering, was now living in her own personal hell, and the final straw that would break her would come soon. I picked up my brush and wrote a letter, then handed it to my trusted servant. Deliver this to their courtyard. Make sure only Liu Rumei sees it. The servant bowed and left. There were no words in the letter, only a painting. It showed a memorial tablet inscribed with, "Tablet of Liu Rumei, concubine of the late Pei Zishuan." Next to it was a portrait of a gentle, sorrowful woman, me, Shen Yue. In the corner of the painting was a short poem. On the road to the underworld you won't be alone. As sisters we shall serve our husband together. I wanted her to see clearly her true identity, her destined end. I wanted this painting to become her nightmare. That painting became Liu Rumei's death sentence, according to my servant. She froze completely when she saw it. She stared fiercely at my face in the painting, and the glaring word concubine. Then she snapped, tearing the painting to shreds, screaming like a wild beast. "Shen Yue, even in death you won't let me go, you venomous woman." Her noise roused Pei Zishuan inside. He rushed out and saw the scraps all over the floor. "What madness are you on now?" His tone was full of annoyance. Liu Rumei's eyes were red. She threw herself at him. "It's you, you did this to me. You turned me into a ghostly concubine. You made me bow my head forever before her. Pei Zishuan, I hate you." This time Pei Zishuan did not hold back. He shoved her away hard. Liu Rumei fell to the ground, her forehead hitting the threshold, bleeding at once. She covered her head and stared at him in disbelief. You pushed me." Pei Zishuan looked at his empty hand and also froze. He had never laid a hand on her before, but in that moment, he had truly wanted to kill this hysterical woman. The atmosphere turned icy cold. Liu Rumei stood up, no longer crying or shouting. She only looked at Pei Zishuan with a venomous gaze. "Fine, perfect." She turned back into the room, packed a small bundle, and when she came out, she did not glance at him at all. She walked straight for the gate. "Where are you going?" Pei Zishuan asked instinctively. "None of your business." Liu Rumei's voice was cold as ice. "Pei Zishuan, from today on, we owe each other nothing. Let someone else be your ghost concubine." She pulled open the gate and left without looking back. Pei Zishuan stood in the yard and did not chase her. For the first time in a long while, he felt relieved. The cage was finally his alone. Liu Rumei left, penniless. Where could she go? She was trapped. She wandered the streets for 2 days, starving and dizzy. Just as she could not hold on any longer, she saw a hiring notice at my shop, Splendid Pavilion, looking for embroiderers, room and board provided, generous monthly pay. She clutched it like the last straw, staggering inside. I happened to be at the shop that day. I wore moon-white men's clothing, waving a fan, inspecting the shop as Madame Wei. I saw her. In just 1 month, she had withered like a flower beaten by storm and rain. Her face was sallow, lips chapped. Those once tender, loving eyes were now empty and numb. She bowed her head, not daring to look at anyone, her voice thin as a mosquito's buzz. "Excuse me, are you still hiring?" The shopkeeper glanced at her and was about to chase her away. I lifted a hand to stop him. I walked up to her and looked her over with amusement. "What can you embroider?" At my voice, her body trembled and she looked up sharply. When she saw my face, she froze. She did not recognize me. I was thinner now, changed. There was no trace left of the gentle Shinue she had known, only the shrewdness and coldness of a merchant. I can do a little of everything." Her voice was uncertain. I smiled. "Is that so? Then embroider a pair of twin lotus flowers for me." I had a servant bring needle, thread, and a white silk square. Liu Rumei's hands shook slightly, but the moment she picked up the needle, her gaze changed, focused. I was somewhat surprised. She actually had some skill. Soon, a handkerchief with twin lotus flowers was finished. The stitches were fine, the colors elegant. She had talent. A crueler plan took shape in my mind. I picked up the handkerchief and nodded. "Not bad, you're hired. From now on, you live here and work peacefully." Liu Rumei's eyes lit up at once. She looked at me as if at a saving bodhisattva. "Thank you, master, thank you." She was so moved she almost knelt. I held her up. "No need for such courtesy. Just call me Madam Wei." She looked at me, tears of gratitude streaming down. She would never know. She had fled one hell, only walked straight into another I had crafted just for her. Liu Rumei settled into splendid pavilion. I gave her the finest room, right next to my own. She ate 3 meals a day at my table, wore fine clothes, was waited on by maids. Compared to her life in that cage, this was paradise. She was endlessly grateful to me, her eyes full of admiration and trust. "Madam Wei, you are like my reborn parents." She told me this more than once. I only smiled. "Work hard, your life will only get better." I began intentionally showing her my wealth. Grapes tribute from the western regions one day, bright pearls from the eastern sea the next. I took her to the most exclusive poetry gatherings in Suzhou, letting her watch noble ladies spend money like water. Light returned to her eyes, the light of longing for power and wealth. I loved that look. It was like watching a prey fall into a trap, making its final struggle. One day, I called her to my study and laid out a pattern. "Rumei, I want you to embroider a wedding gown for me." She froze. "A wedding gown?" "Yes." I spread the pattern before her. It was the most magnificent wedding gown under heaven. Gold thread base, silver thread decorations, to be embroidered with 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix. Every phoenix feather would use the thinnest peacock feather thread, utterly luxurious, breathtakingly beautiful. Liu Rumei stared dumbfounded. "Madam Wei, is this for you?" Her voice held a trace of bitterness. I shook my head. "Not for me, it's for a poor customer." I sighed and wove a story. This customer once had a childhood sweetheart. Sadly, her lover married a woman of matching status by his parents' order. She waited for him for years, suffering all kinds of wrongs. Later, he faked his death just to be with her forever. As I spoke, I watched Liu Rumei's expression. Her face paled little by little, her hands clutching the pattern trembling slightly. Every word of this story pierced her heart like a needle. I pretended not to notice, continuing in a sorrowful tone, "But fate is cruel. Their affair was discovered by the family of his wife, who died for him. Now they are trapped in poverty, growing sick of each other. The man even regrets it and despises her. Don't you think this woman is pitiful?" Liu Rumei did not answer. Her lips were bitten pale, tears brimming in her eyes. I handed her a silk handkerchief. "Don't be sad, it's all in the past. The customer has now met someone who truly cares for her, someone who doesn't care about her past, who will redeem her and give her a proper title. That's why this wedding gown exists. I want you to embroider it. I believe only a woman who has known suffering can stitch its soul into it. Will you do it?" Liu Rumei looked up sharply. The tears finally fell. She looked at me with complicated eyes, envy, jealousy, unwillingness, until finally, all turned to resignation. I will. She took the pattern, as if taking her own broken dreams. I watched her leave in a daze, the smile on my lips growing colder and colder. Liu Rumei, how does it feel to embroider someone else's wedding gown with your own 2 hands, stitching stitch by stitch the happiness you can never have? Do you like this kind of torture? Pei Zishuan went mad. After Liu Rumei left, he stayed alone in that yard for 3 whole days without stepping out. He drank his last jar of wine. Then he had to face the cruelest truth. He had no money left, not even enough for a steamed bun. Hunger is more terrible than loneliness. It can crush a man's last shred of dignity. The once great general was now begging for a scrap of food. He took off his last decent clothes and put on the ragged short linen. He tried to find work, carrying sacks at the dock, washing dishes at an inn, anything for a meal. But he overestimated himself. His hands were made to hold a sword and kill enemies, not to do menial labor. On his first day at the dock, he was chased away for being too weak to carry sacks. On his second day at the inn, he was screamed at by the boss for breaking plates. He wandered Suzhou's streets like a stray dog, everyone looking at him with disgust. No one knew this broken man had once been a decorated general. He began to regret. He missed the general's mansion in the capital, the days when servants attended his every step. Even, he began to miss me, Miss Shen Yue, who always kept the house in order, who always looked at him with gentle eyes. If he hadn't faked his death, if he had never met Liu Rumei, what would his life have been? Too late for what ifs. Just as he was starving to death, he heard news. The owner of Splendid Pavilion, the biggest silk shop in the city, Madame Wei, was hiring guards, good pay, room and board provided. It was his last chance. He practically crawled to Splendid Pavilion. A long line had formed at the gate, all tall, strong men. Pei Zishuan stood among them, completely out of place. He bowed his head, covering his face with a ragged bamboo hat. He feared being recognized, though he knew no one would recognize him like this. After a long wait, the steward finally came out. Behind him walked a woman, dressed in men's clothing, holding a fan, with extraordinary bearing. This must be the legendary Madame Wei. Pei Zishuan did not lift his head. He did not want anyone to see his humiliation. I walked step by step past the applicants, my gaze sweeping over strong faces, until it stopped on the man huddled in the corner. Even with his head down, even in rags, I would have recognized his figure and outline anywhere. Pei Zishuan, my dear husband, we meet again at last. I stopped in front of him. He seemed to sense something, his body tensing, but I did not expose him at once. I only circled him once. Then said to the steward in a disdainful tone, "This man is too thin. He looks like a sickly weakling. Send him away." Pei Zishuan's body jolted violently. He slowly lifted his head. Beneath the shadow of the hat, those once high-spirited eyes now held only humiliation and despair. When his gaze met mine, he froze completely. Shock, terror, disbelief, all twisted on his face. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Of course, how would you feel meeting someone you thought was dead? Especially when that dead person was the wife you drove to her death. I looked at his horrified face and felt a surge of vengeful pleasure. I pretended not to know him, only sizing him up casually. I turned to leave, then paused after 2 steps and looked back as if remembering something. I frowned at him. "Wait, you look familiar. Have we met before?" My words struck Pei Zishuan like thunder. He stared at me blankly, eyes full of fear and confusion. How could he answer, admit he knew me? Then how would he explain why his dead wife, stood here? How would he explain why he, the fallen general, was reduced to this? Deny knowing me. He might not even leave this place alive today. His Adam's apple bobbed. After a long while, he squeezed out words through his teeth. This lowly one does not know you, madam. If you don't know me, then never mind. I chuckled and flicked my fan. I must have mistaken you for someone else. I'll take pity on you and keep you. My back stable still needs a hand. 1 tael a month, room and board included. Will you take it, stable hand? 1 tael a month. Such humiliation. I clearly saw Pei Zishuan's fists clenched tight under his sleeves, knuckles white with force. With his pride, he should have turned and left, but he didn't. He had no choice. Slowly, he bowed his proud head. I will. This lowly one accepts. Good. I nodded in satisfaction. Take him down. The steward led him to the back courtyard. Pei Zishuan did not dare look at me once. He looked like a defeated rooster, utterly broken. I put him in the most remote, damp servant's room, his daily work, chopping wood, carrying water, mucking out the stables. I wanted him to taste the lowest life there was. I wanted him to know. The general's title he was so proud of was worth nothing to me. The cat-and-mouse game had officially begun. I was the cat. He and Liu Rumei were both mice in my palm. I began arranging their accidental meetings. One day I asked Liu Rumei to admire flowers in the back garden with me. She had been focused on embroidering the wedding gown these days. My kindness had made her rely on me more and more. She already saw me as a close sister, willing to tell me everything. Madam Wei, you're so kind. If only I'd met someone as good as you back then. Her eyes reddened as she spoke. I patted her hand gently. Let the past stay in the past. We must look forward. As I spoke, I glanced at Pei Zishuan from the corner of my eye. He was trimming flower branches not far away, wearing rough servant's clothes, moving stiffly. He had heard every word. His back was stiff with humiliation and rage. I deliberately raised my voice. Speaking of which, the customer you're embroidering that wedding gown for. Her heart was also broken by a man. That man faked his own death just to run off with his lover, abandoning his wife. How can there be such heartless people in this world? My words stabbed like a knife into both of them. Liu Rumei's face turned pale in an instant. She never dreamed the story behind the wedding gown was so similar to her own. On the other side, snap, Pei Zishuan's scissors fell to the ground. He spun around and stared daggers at me. Gone was the earlier fear. Only venomous realization remained. He understood everything. This was no coincidence. It was a trap, a perfect net I had woven just for him. I met his gaze without flinching, and smiled coldly. Pei Zishuan, are you finally afraid now? Too bad. The game has only just begun. Pei Zishuan's eyes were like poisoned arrows, aimed straight at me. Liu Rumei turned pale with fright. Madam Wei, I patted her hand reassuringly. Don't be afraid, just some mad dog barking for no reason. I looked at Pei Zishuan. You. Come here. My voice was soft but commanding. Pei Zishuan clenched his fists and walked toward me step by step. Every step felt like walking on blades. What is your name? I already knew. He stared at me, lips pressed into a tight line. No answer. Lost your tongue. I raised an eyebrow. Fine. A servant's name doesn't matter. What matters is knowing your place. I picked up the scissors he had dropped, and held them out to him. Trim those peonies. If even one leaf is not to my liking, I'll chop off your hand. My voice was gentle but cruel. Liu Rumei trembled even harder. Pei Zishuan's chest heaved violently. The hatred in his eyes almost devoured me. But he took the scissors. He turned toward the peonies. His hands shook. Hands that had once held swords and led thousands of troops, now trimming flowers for a woman. How bitterly ironic, how deeply humiliating. I took Liu Rumei and sat down on the stone bench beside her. Rumei, let's watch him. We might learn a thing or two about gardening. Liu Rumei sat on pins and needles. She dared not look at Pei Zishuan, dared not look at me either. She only twisted her handkerchief, head bowed. The air turned icy, only the snip-snip of scissors, and Pei Zishuan's heavy breathing could be heard. I sipped my tea leisurely. enjoying the delicious scene before me, my ex-husband and his first love, one a slave, one a maid, both in the palm of my hand. This feeling was simply exquisite. Night fell. I was about to go to bed, when the door was pushed open from outside. A figure slipped in. It was Pei Zishuan. He had changed out of his dirty servant's clothes, wearing only a thin inner garment. His hair was messy, his eyes bloodshot, like a wounded beast driven into a corner. He locked the door behind him, and advanced toward me step by step. Shen Yue. He spoke my name through gritted teeth. I sat at the dressing table, not moving an inch, only watching him coldly through the mirror. General Pei. Breaking into my chamber in the dead of night, hardly the behavior of a servant. You never died. He stepped behind me, hands slamming onto the table, trapping me between him and the mirror. This was all your plan. You lured me to the south. You made Liu Rumei leave me. You turned me into your servant, Shen Yue. You have a venomous heart. I laughed. I turned and looked up at him. Venomous? Compared to faking your death, lying to your wife, and abandoning her, my tricks are nothing. I am only returning to you what you gave to me. His breath fanned my face, thick with alcohol and rage. What do you want? Simple. I stood face to face with him, my fingertips brushing lightly over his chest. I want you to live a life worse than death. I want you to watch with your own eyes as the woman you love forgets you and falls for another. I want you to stitch her phoenix crown and Sharpay with your own hands, and send her into another man's bridal sedan chair. I want you to kneel at my feet and beg like a dog. Every word pierced his heart like a needle. His face turned pale, his body trembling uncontrollably. You wicked woman. He suddenly clamped his hands around my throat and slammed me against the wall. Suffocation hit me at once. I did not struggle. I only looked at him with calm eyes, watching the murderous madness in his gaze. Kill me. I forced the 3 words out of my throat. Kill me, and you and your beloved Maya will both be free. But you will never know what became of your parents, or how your entire Pei clan will suffer because of you. His hands froze abruptly. Parents, clan, these were his weak spots, and I had them. The killing intent in his eyes faded, replaced by endless despair and defeat. He let go. I collapsed to the ground. Coughing violently, he looked at me, his eyes impossibly complicated. Who are you really? He muttered. This woman before him, cold, ruthless, in complete control, was nothing like the gentle, timid Shen Yue he remembered. I supported myself against the wall and stood up slowly, smoothing my messy clothes. Who am I? I stepped before him, leaned close to his ear, and whispered, I am the ghost who crawled back from hell to claim your life. After that night, Pei Zishuan changed. He no longer resisted, no longer glared with hatred. He became silent, numb, a puppet without a soul. I told him to do something, and he did it. I told him to muck the stables, and he cleaned them spotless. I told him to chop wood, and he stacked it neatly. It was as if he had truly accepted his fate, but I knew he hadn't. The fire inside him was only suppressed. He was waiting for a chance to strike back, and I would never give it to him. I began torturing him in new ways. For instance, I made him wash my feet. I sat on the lounge chair in the yard. He knelt on the ground, holding a basin of hot water, carefully lowering my feet into it. His hands were hot, his movements gentle. I could feel how stiff and trembling he was. I closed my eyes and savored every moment. Liu Rumei stood not far away. She came to greet me every day. Today was no exception. She saw the scene. She stood frozen, her face as white as paper. The great hero she had loved, the man she had abandoned everything for, was now kneeling at another woman's feet, washing her feet. The blow to her was devastating. Pei Zishuan saw her too. He bowed his head even lower, wanting to vanish into the ground. I opened my eyes and beckoned her over. Rumei, come here. She walked over stiffly. Madam Wei, look, I said. pointing at Pei Zishuan. My new servant has good hands, doesn't he? Just the right pressure. Her lips trembled. She could not speak. I smiled. By the way, how is that wedding gown coming along? I finished half, Madam Wei. Good. Hurry. My client can't wait. Her beloved has prepared a grand wedding for her. On the 8th day of next month, the entire city of Suzhou will celebrate. My words cut her heart like a dull knife. Tears finally spilled down her cheeks. Madam Wei, I envy her. Envy what? That she can be with the one she loves. You can too. I looked at her meaningfully. As long as you forget the one you shouldn't remember, you will meet the right person. My gaze flicked faintly toward Pei Zishuan kneeling on the ground. Liu Rumei followed my eyes. What she saw was a humiliated, broken man, serving a woman who held all the power. In that moment, her heart tilted completely. She sniffled and wiped her tears fiercely. You're right, Madam Wei. This servant will obey you. Pei Zishuan knelt on the ground, listening to every word. Each one tortured him. The woman he loved was saying she would forget him, right in front of him. His former wife was enjoying his humiliation, right in front of him. He wanted to fight back, to roar, to throw the basin of foot-washing water in my face, but he couldn't. 2 strong guards stood behind him. One wrong move, and he would be seized at once. He could only endure, swallow all the humiliation and rage. Then, with those hands that had once killed countless enemies, he picked up a cloth and carefully dried the water from my feet. The furthest distance in the world is not between life and death. It is standing before you, while you can only kneel on the ground, watching me talk and laugh with the woman you love. Liu Rumei turned completely to my side. She began avoiding Pei Zishuan intentionally. Even if they met in the yard, she walked past without a glance, as if he were just a meaningless servant. Pei Zishuan tried to speak to her. He wanted answers. He wanted to ask if their 3 years together meant nothing. But he wasn't even allowed near her. I assigned 2 maids to Liu Rumei, following her every step, officially to take care of her, in truth, to watch her. Pei Zishuan was completely isolated. He became the lowest creature in the mansion. Everyone could order him around. Even the old woman stoking the kitchen fire dared to scold him to his face. Useless man can't even light a stove. What good are you? He endured it all in silence, but his eyes grew darker and colder each day. I knew he was reaching his limit. A caged tiger is always quietest before it explodes. I decided to add one final spark. One day, I called Pei Zishuan to my study. Copy these 100 times for me. I threw a stack of paper at him. On it were 4 characters written in my own handwriting. Chaste and loyal woman. It was the title the emperor had bestowed upon Shen Yue. Now I was making the man who had driven her to death copy her glory. How bitterly ironic. Pei Zishuan stared at the characters, his body shaking violently. He looked up sharply, glaring at me. Shen Yue. Don't go too far, too far. I lifted my teacup and blew gently. You think copying a few words is going too far? What about letting the woman you love wear a cuckold for you? Is that going too far? His pupils shrank. What do you mean? Nothing much. Just telling you. Su Wen, my cousin, has taken a fancy to Rumei. He already asked me. He wants to take her as a concubine. Do you think I should agree? You dare? He roared like an enraged lion. Do you know who Su Wen is? The most famous playboy in the capital. He's ruined more women than you've eaten rice. You're pushing Rumei to her doom. Oh, I pretended to be surprised. So the general still cares about Rumei. I thought you didn't care anymore. After all, she obeys my every word now. She won't even see you. Every word cut him to the core. Pei Zishuan's face turned bright red. What do you want? Simple. I picked up a brush and shoved it into his hand. Copy. Finish 100 copies, and I'll turn Su Wen down. If you don't, I paused, leaned close to his ear, and spoke so only he could hear. I will host their wedding myself. and I'll make you watch them consummate their marriage. You." He trembled with rage, unable to speak. He knew I meant every word. He had no choice. He took the brush, dipped it in ink, and wrote those 4 bitterly ironic characters on the clean white paper. "Chaste, loyal, virtuous, woman," he wrote slowly. Every stroke took all his strength. I stood aside, watching coldly. As I destroyed his pride and broke his will, little by little, the door suddenly opened. Liu Rumei walked in with a bowl of ginseng soup. Madame Wei, when she saw Pei Zishuan at the desk, writing furiously, and when she read what he was writing, she froze completely. The ginseng soup in her hands crashed to the ground, shattering into pieces. Pei Zishuan heard the noise and looked up. Their eyes met. One was his former wife, the other his once beloved first love. Now they were separated by a desk covered in the words, "Chaste and loyal woman." No words were spoken, only endless embarrassment and bitter irony. Liu Rumei's lips trembled. She looked from Pei Zishuan to me, her eyes full of fear and pleading. She seemed to finally understand. I smiled, breaking the deadly silence. "Rumei, perfect timing. Come see the future husband I've picked for you. What do you think?" I pointed to a painting on the desk. It showed a handsome, elegant man. It was Su Wen. Liu Rumei's face drained of all color in an instant. Liu Rumei turned as white as paper. She looked at me, then at Su Wen in the painting, and finally her gaze fell on Pei Zishuan. Her eyes were a tangled mess, terror, confusion, begging. Pei Zishuan stared back at her. His eyes held the last glimmer of desperate hope. He was begging her not to agree, begging her not to betray the love they once shared. I watched this silent standoff with satisfaction, savoring the trapped struggle of this once passionate couple. My smile grew softer and colder. "Rumei, what do you think? My cousin Su Wen is the only son of the Su family in the capital, the imperial merchants whose wealth rivals the state. You've seen his looks and manner, true. He can only offer you a concubine's position, but a concubine of the Su family is more honored than a legal wife in an ordinary house. Silks and jewels beyond count. No more hiding, no more fear, no more suffering." Every word was honey-coated poison, fed straight into her heart. I could see she was wavering. Her eyes darted away, afraid to meet Pei Zishuan's gaze. Pei Zishuan's heart sank little by little. The light in his eyes died out completely. "Of course," I added gently, "if you don't want to. That's fine too." My gaze turned to Pei Zishuan, thick with contempt. "You can choose him instead, a useless man who can't even feed himself, a coward who betrayed his duty and abandoned his wife, a servant, worth less than a dog in my house. Follow him, and you'll have nothing. You'll worry about food every day. You'll live forever in my shadow, never to rise again." I laid 2 paths clearly before her. One, a golden road to wealth and glory, if she gave up her so-called love. The other, a thorny path to hell, with nothing but this broken, penniless man. "Now tell me your choice, Rumei, choose." The room fell completely silent. Liu Rumei's breathing quickened. Tears streamed down her face. She looked at Pei Zishuan, his pale face, his humiliated eyes. Then she looked at me, my gentle, cruel smile. She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, only resolve remained. She knelt slowly before me. "This servant will obey Madame Wei's decision." Those words struck Pei Zishuan like thunder. He stared at her in disbelief. The woman who had sworn to live and die with him, now knelt before another woman and chose wealth and glory. "Liu, are you my?" He squeezed out her name through his teeth. Hoarse, bloodthirsty, he wanted to rush forward, grab her shoulders, demand an answer, but I stepped between them first. "Insolence," I snapped coldly. "A servant dares to call his master by name." "Guards!" 2 strong guards burst in from outside. "Drag him out, 50 slaps. Teach him proper manners." "Yes, madam." The guards lifted Pei Zishuan like a dead dog. "Shen Yuwei, "You venomous woman, you'll pay for this." His screams faded into the distance. Liu Rumei knelt on the ground, trembling violently. She stared toward where he had been dragged, her face bloodless, fear, regret, and pain twisted in her eyes. I helped her up and gently wiped her tears. "Don't be afraid, you made the right choice. Someday you'll thank me." She looked at me with empty eyes. She did not know, she had only escaped one cage, to step into another, even more magnificent one, and this time, she would have no chance to regret. Clear slaps echoed through the courtyard. One after another, muffled grunts came from Pei Zishuan. Liu Rumei flinched with every sound. Her face was paler than snow. "Madam Wei," she looked at me pleadingly. "I am only teaching a servant discipline," I said calmly. "Pay it no mind." I led her to a stone bench in the yard. A maid brought fresh tea and delicate pastries. "Try this Osmanthus cake, fresh today." I picked up a piece and held it to her lips. She opened her mouth stiffly and bit down, tasting nothing. Her whole attention was fixed on the noise from the other side of the yard. I did not push her. I sipped my tea leisurely, enjoying her restless, tortured expression. After a while, the steward hurried in. "Madam, young Master Su has arrived." I raised an eyebrow. "Speak of the devil." I stood and straightened my clothes. "Rumei, come with me to greet him. We cannot slight your future husband." Liu Rumei tensed again. She stood mechanically and followed me, a puppet without a soul. We reached the main hall. A handsome man in luxurious robes stood there, fanning himself and admiring a painting. It was Su Wen. "Cousin," I greeted him with a smile. Su Wen turned and grinned when he saw me. "Wei Wei." I invited myself over. His gaze fell on Liu Rumei behind me, a flash of admiration in his eyes. "This must be Miss Liu." He stepped forward and bowed gracefully. "I am Su Wen. I've long heard of your beauty." Liu Rumei bowed hastily, flustered. "Young Master Su, no need for such formality." Su Wen's eyes roamed over her openly. "Seeing you today, I understand what true beauty is. Wei Wei, your taste is excellent." He pulled a small jewelry box from his sleeve and opened it. Inside lay a dazzling gold.
"Madam Wei, no, I don't want him touching my gown," she screamed, as if Pei Zishuan were some filthy plague. Pei Zishuan heard her. His body jolted. The last color left his face. He looked at Liu Rumei, his eyes ice-cold to the bone. "Fine." He suddenly laughed, a laugh uglier than tears. "I'll sew it." He picked up the golden needle and thread from the tray. His hands shook violently. He tried several times before threading the needle. He walked toward Liu Rumei step by step. She stared at him in fear, wanting to flee. I held her shoulders firm. "Don't move. Let him sew." My voice was ice-cold. She dared not move again. Once they had been so close, they could feel each other's breath and heartbeat. Now they were worlds apart, separated by a gorgeous wedding gown, separated by a blood-deep hatred. Pei Zishuan raised his hand. He aimed the needle at the last empty spot, right over her heart. He closed his eyes. When he opened them, there was only dead stillness. He stabbed the needle down hard. The point pierced layer after layer of brocade, and pricked his own fingertip. A bright red bead of blood welled up, dripped onto the golden thread, then stained the snow-white silk lining of the gown. A blooming, desperate plum blossom. Liu Rumei let out a short scream. Pei Zishuan ignored her. He pulled the blood-stained thread through with an empty face. One perfect stitch. The final stitch was done, with his own hands. He had embroidered the wedding gown for the woman he loved, with his own hands. He had pushed her into another man's arms. He let go. The golden needle clattered to the floor, a clear, thin sound, like something shattering completely. He looked at me. No hatred remained in his eyes, only endless, hollow numbness. "Xin Yue," his voice was hoarse, as if scraped by sandpaper. "Are you satisfied now?" I looked at his humiliated scars, at the light dying in his eyes. I smiled, bright and brilliant. "No. It's still not enough." As my words fell, Pei Zishuan swayed, then fell straight backward. He fainted, or rather, the man inside him had died. The 8th of next month, an auspicious day for weddings. The entire Su mansion was decorated with lanterns and streamers, filled with joy. Liu Rumei's courtyard bustled with people. She sat before the mirror, letting the wedding maids dress her. The bronze mirror showed a stunning face, adorned with a phoenix crown and pearls. She was beautiful as a painting. But her eyes were empty, 2 dark holes without light. The auspicious hour is near. The wedding maid placed the red veil over her head. From this day on, her life would be completely different. Outside, the wedding procession had arrived. Swana and drum music filled the sky. Su Wen sat on a tall horse, dressed in wedding robes. High-spirited, he smiled and bowed to the guests. Before his horse, one man stood with his head bowed, holding the reins. He wore servant's clothes, thin and haggard. It was Pei Zishuan. He had woken these past few days, but he looked like a lost soul. No words, no resistance, a puppet to be manipulated at will. I told him to lead Su Wen's horse, and he came. He led the horse. On the horse was the man who had stolen his woman. In the sedan behind was the woman he had once loved more than life. With his own hands, he was sending her to marry another. How bitterly ironic, how cruelly savage. The procession paraded around Suzhou. Everyone saw the Su family's wealth. Everyone saw the handsome groom. No one noticed the humble servant holding the reins. The procession returned to the Su mansion, stepping over the fire basin, bowing to heaven and earth. Liu Rumei was led into the wedding hall. Guests filled every seat. Pei Zishuan stood in the most unnoticeable corner, like a ghost, watching it all, watching Su Wen take her hand, watching them kneel before the ancestral tablet. First bow to heaven and earth, second bow to ancestors, bow as husband and wife. Stop! A violent shout exploded from the door. The wedding hall doors were kicked open. A group of armored soldiers with long swords rushed in. At their head was a stern-faced general, holding high an imperial golden tablet, imperial edict. The entire hall fell silent. All guests knelt in terror. Su Wen and Liu Rumei froze. The general's eagle eyes swept the room, finally stopping on Pei Zishuan in the corner. By heaven's decree, the emperor commands. The traitorous General Pei Zishuan faked his death to deceive the emperor, betrayed his country and family. His crime is unforgivable. His accomplices Liu and Su shall be arrested together and held for judgment. By imperial command, the soldiers charged like tigers. In an instant, the stunned Pei Zishuan, Su Wen, and Liu Rumei were all pinned to the ground. The phoenix crown on Liu Rumei's head fell to the floor with a sharp crack. She screamed and struggled. No, you've got the wrong person. I'm innocent. Su Wen's face also paled. General, there must be a misunderstanding. Pei Zishuan did not struggle. He only lifted his head and stared blankly, as if watching a farce that had nothing to do with him. The wedding hall descended into chaos. Everyone trembled in fear, only me. I stood up slowly from the main seat. I walked before the leading general. At once, all his fierceness vanished. He dropped to one knee and saluted me respectfully. Miss Shin, your subordinate has fulfilled his mission. Everything proceeded exactly as you planned. My words struck like thunder in everyone's heart. Pei Zishuan snapped his head up and stared at me, utterly incredulous. A deathly silence fell over the hall, all eyes fixed on me. Shock, terror, confusion. Pei Zishuan looked at me as if at a completely unfamiliar monster. Shun, Yue. His voice shook violently. What is all this? I laughed. I stepped before him and looked down at the man I had dragged to hell with my own hands. My dear husband, did you really think I jumped into the river and died for you? That I spent all my family's wealth to build merit for you? You were wrong. Everything I did was for this day. I raised my hand. My trusted servant handed over a prepared scroll. I threw it at Pei Zishuan's feet. News of your fake death was sent to the capital before I ever jumped. One letter to my father, another directly to the censorate. I faked my death to turn this into ironclad proof, to make the whole world my witness. I gave away money to win people over, to buy off the merchants who carried your messages, so I could hold your every move in my palm. As for the emperor's title, chaste and loyal woman, that was my talisman, begged from his majesty. With it, I could act freely in the south and weave this net just for you. Pei Zishuan's eyes widened more and more. All color drained from his face. Then Su Wen. He turned to Su Wen, pinned on the ground. Su Wen no longer looked alarmed, he only smiled helplessly. General Pei, my apologies. My cousin has always been one to repay every grudge. This wedding was just a play she asked me to act in. Its only purpose was to trap you and your beloved. No, Liu Rumei let out a desperate scream. She stared at me in disbelief. Madam Wei, you lied to me. I did not lie to you. I walked to her, knelt down, and gently tied at her messy hair. The Su family's wealth was real. Su Wen's kindness to you was real. But none of it was true. You thought you escaped a cage. Little did you know you only jumped into another trap I made just for you. And you, from start to finish, were only a pawn to lure Pei Zishuan. Liu Rumei completely broke down. She lunged at me like a madwoman, but was held fast by the soldiers. I stood up and looked away from her. I returned to Pei Zishuan. You abandoned your duty, your glory, your wife, all for a so-called first love. You thought you were shedding your shell to pursue true love. In my eyes, you were nothing but a traitor to your country, a selfish coward. So tell me, do you like my gift? Faking your death has a price. Your price is your life, your family's 100-year honor, and the future of the woman you love. Pei Zishuan looked at me. The hatred in his eyes faded, replaced by bone-deep, icy despair. He finally understood. From the moment he decided to fake his death, he had already lost completely. He laughed, tears streaming down his face. Xin Yue, you have such a cruel heart. Thank you for the compliment. I bowed slightly. I did not glance at him again. I turned and walked out of the wedding hall where so many dramas had played out. Behind me came the sound of soldiers dragging the prisoners away, and Liu Rumei's shrill weeping. None of it mattered anymore. I stepped into the courtyard. The sun shone warmly on me. There was no longer Mrs. Pei Yue, no longer Madam Wei, owner of a Suzhou silk shop. I was just me. From this day on, I lived for myself.